I picked up on a politician that was talking a lot about sound money and what is money and stuff like that in Parliament, and his name was Pierre Poilievre. I reached out to him and told him, hey, I like what you do. Like, we're big Bitcoin advocates, and I think this is a way to sort of protect Canadians' money and wealth. And, I just slid in his DM sort of thing, right? But he answered me back and we became friends. And then one day he tells me, hey, would you like to come to speak to the finance committee and the members of parliament, the yearly financial budget review of like the country? And I was like, sure, absolutely. So I started to think about, what do I want to tell my country about their budget meeting. And at that point, Salvador just had launched their Bitcoin legal tender, and money printing was crazy at that time. We had just printed, I think it was like 600 billion. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to this meeting. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to tell them that they should integrate with Bitcoin. It's a parallel technology. It's going to help our economy. And I told them that we should make Bitcoin legal tender. And I think we can be leaders in this space. And I also told them that they need to borrow $10 billion from the central bank and buy Bitcoin with it. Like, that was basically the summary. That was the whole like speech. And I got laughed out of the room, Michelle, so fast. So fast. Nobody was interested. At that time, Bitcoin was at $50,000 Canadian. Now it's at $150,000 Canadian. I know they weren't going to take me seriously, but I just wanted to go up there to have a reference, a point of history where an immigrant Canadian entrepreneur went up to the Canadian government and told them you should borrow $10 billion from the central bank and buy Bitcoin with it. I think if they listened, maybe with just 1 billion instead of the 10, Canada would have benefited massively from this investment. Since we already sold all of our gold back in 2016, I thought, it'd be nice if our country was rich.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Bitcoin for Professionals. Our guest today is Ali Hammam, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Tahini's, the fast-growing Middle Eastern restaurant chain that have taken Canada by storm. So known not just for your delicious food and shawarmas, but as well for your bold and very early Bitcoin treasury strategy. Ali, welcome. Yamit, ahla wa sahla.
Thank you, Michelle Habibi. I appreciate the warm welcome, and I'm super excited to be speaking with you today.
Wonderful. Let's just jump in. You are very well known in the Bitcoin community, but for people who do not know you and who do not know Tahini's, can you just please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, so my name is Ali Hammam. I am the co-founder of Tahini's and the chief marketing officer of Tahini's as well. And we founded this company. Our first restaurant we opened, it was in 2012, and we just operated one restaurant for years, and then we opened a second and a third, and then from there we just decided to franchise the business. We worked years on developing the franchise model and the standard operating procedures until we finally kicked it off and we got our first few deals in. By 2020, we launched our first, I think it was 2019, we launched our first franchise location. And then we just kept going from there. And we now sit at 62 restaurants across the country, across Canada, serving some delicious Middle Eastern food and out of the box shawarmas, like butter chicken shawarma and Jamaican jerk shawarma. And we push the boundaries of shawarma at Tahini's. So we create all these unique flavors and shawarmas that you'll not find anywhere else but at Tahini's. So that's basically a summary of Tahini's, and yeah.
Well, that's impressive. Congrats that this is a huge achievement. And I love that you obviously shawarma, maybe as a layer one is the way that we eat it in the Middle East, but you've kind of added, let's say, more savors to because Canada is a huge diverse place with people, moving there from all over the country. So I love that you've incorporated different flavors into the layer one of shawarma.
Thank you.
So, as a vice president and chief marketing officer of the very fast growing chain, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
It's a headache right now, to be honest with you, Michelle. There's something new every day, and we always try to operate in a way where we put our guests first, and our guests are always the our obsession here at Tahini. So all of our decisions are based around the guests, and then the layer two that comes on top of that is our partners, and which is our franchisees.
Hmm.
We have to make sure they're comfortable and happy as well, and then the last thing we care about is us. So trying to manage 62 restaurants is definitely a new um, task for us that we've never done before. And
Mm.
every day is a new day. Every day has new challenges. And I just wake up every day thinking, okay, let's tackle some new stuff today. So it's exciting and it's tough. Problems are new and difficult, and we have to brainstorm, think from first principles a lot of the times to try to get to a solution, and that way of thinking uh, eventually led us to be very creative with how we do things. And in my department, like the marketing department, the we go at it at a different um, like we tackle marketing differently. We use social media, we use organic social media to try to get our reach out there and get our name out there, and we do mostly like entertainment and comedy, and try to get make people smile. And we've been able to rack about, I believe, 3 billion views across all
Wow.
of our distribution channels, millions of subscribers and followers on our YouTube and TikTok and all of that, and it's been a fun ride.
But that's amazing. So, like you're not just being creative in your product offering and the way you're blending different flavors in your food, but you're not afraid of having your own voice in the way you market yourself. I was going to ask you about that because you have over 3 million followers, I think, on your YouTube channel. And what has been key to scaling to that point without maybe losing the authenticity that the audience has initially connected with?
I mean, just keep doing it, get better at doing it, try to figure out what people like to watch, what they don't like to watch, study the formulas, study the videos that you've done before and see how you can improve on them, and just again go at it from the watcher and the audience perspective, try to put them
Mm,
first and see what they want to see, and how we can put a smile on their faces, because the goal of these videos is to just keep them entertained, is not to try to force somebody to come in, hey, I got a deal for this or a deal for that, or come try my this. I just want to make them smile, and then if I make them smile 7 times or more, they're probably going to end up wanting to try out tahinis at some point in their life. So that's the goal.
absolutely. Sounds extremely, like you said, very client-centric, very authentic. And so, if I may say, you are a very successful entrepreneur. I think Tahini is a kind of a family affair, if I'm not mistaken.
It is a family business. So we're three partners. It's me, my brother, and my cousin. My brother is the CEO, and my cousin is the COO, and he handles all of supply chain as well. And yeah, and then we also have a giant team of just superheroes that work with us,
Nice.
and they're just an awesome team. Everything from graphic designers to chief financial officers to everybody in between, construction and operation and training and everybody. We have just like a solid team that we've been able to build out over the years. So I give them the credit, to be honest.
Kudos to all of them. What I really want to talk about is, so you shared, I think in summer of 2020, you have shared a very powerful thread about why Tahini's has converted its cash reserves into Bitcoin. That was extremely early on. As you know, Bitcoin treasury companies is kind of the thing. It's been a few months, but you've been one of the earliest companies. I'm very curious to know, like what clicked for you? How did you discover Bitcoin personally? And then how did you develop the conviction in order to incorporate it in your business that, as you mentioned, is a family business, lots of people, lots of decisions, and as well, you mentioned all of the huge staff that you have, so it does impact kind of everyone. Very curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so this is a cool story. It's a fun story. It's one of my favorite stories, and I hope you have some time and interest to hear it out. But it basically, yes, it all started in 2020. At that point, we were operating three restaurants, uh, and sorry, four restaurants, and three were corporate, and one was a franchise restaurant. And March 2020 hit, and the COVID shutdowns happened, and we went down 80% in sales within a week.
Wow.
So you can only imagine the how hungry we are to start this company and start on this journey, and then boom, we just hit with lockdowns, drop in sales 80%. We were losing our minds, right? So we did what any business owner would do if they love their business. We went out and we slaved away 7 days a week, day and night. We're in the restaurants. A lot of our team left us. They left us because they were getting like checks in the mail, right? They were getting just free money from the government. And we were just stuck. We don't want to lose the business. Obviously, we don't want to shut down. And I was literally doing everything in the restaurant from dishes to everything. So that happened, right? And then right after, we saw that business started to pick back up. The team started to come back in, and everything was sort of kind of back to normal, besides, like some lockdowns. But for us, because we were like a fast food restaurant, um, there was no lot of sit down. So sales picked back up, and things came back to where they were. And then it just hit me at that time. I'm like, there's just people all over the country, all over the world, really just getting free money. Free money just handed out to them. That was the reason why we lost a lot of the people, and the reason why we couldn't hire people is because they would just rather stay at home and collect free money from the government. And at that point, I've seen what money printing does, to an economy. I've lived in Egypt and I saw currency debasement over and over and over again, and I started to panic. Right? I was like, at that point, I've been a business owner for almost a decade at that point, and I had a good amount of wealth, and I was like panicked and obsessed on how can I preserve my wealth, right? So as stocks tanked and everything tanked, I started buying everything, stocks, different, mostly like tech stocks, but also different kind of stocks. And I've heard before about Bitcoin like once or twice, but I didn't really understand it. But because it was down so much, I was like, let me buy a little bit. And I figured out how to buy a little bit, and I just did it. And then that's when curiosity kicked in, and I wanted to learn more about what I just bought, right? So I started going down the rabbit hole, the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I started reading books. I brought the Bitcoin Standard by Saifuddin Ammous. I got The Internet of Money by Andreas Antonopoulos. I got The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. And I started reading, and listening to podcasts, listening to YouTube videos as I'm literally like washing dishes, in the restaurant, and it was like an obsessive phase. I was just like, it was 3 months of just studying Bitcoin and buying it at the same time. And the more I learned, the more my allocation to it grew. So it went from like a 5% allocation to a 10, a 20, a 30, a 40, and then eventually it just consumed everything. I was like, this is it. I need to go all in. So I went all in, and it wasn't enough for me, Michelle. I felt like I needed to buy more. I had this, it was like an epiphany, call it whatever you call it. I was like, this is a game of musical chairs.
Hmm.
Music's gonna stop, and every company in the world is gonna want to buy Bitcoin. And I literally have that in my tweet that you just mentioned earlier. I was like, we're not gonna wait for the S&P 500 to buy Bitcoin. We're gonna buy it. So I talked to my partners, tried to convince them. It was a very difficult conversation. Keep in mind, we didn't have a lot of money actually, like in the company at that point, but it was a chunk. It was a significant chunk, and we discussed back and forth whether or not to put the company money into Bitcoin. And then Michael Saylor came out with his first initial ever buy of Bitcoin. And that was the signal for me, which
Wow.
pushed us over the cliff. And I was like, okay, it's happening. What I thought was going to happen is actually going to happen, and we need to jump in right away. So we set up an account, we did all the work, and we just went all in, and we put all the money of the company into Bitcoin a week after, or a week and a half after Michael Saylor did his first buy.
So
And yeah, that
you
was
even
pretty
you
much
were
it.
able
It
to.
was
That's fascinating. What I hear is that you even front ran Michael Saylor. Yeah.
some people think that because it was so close to Michael Saylor's buy. Like personally, I bought it way before the company did, because I started buying like back in April and of 2020, and then for the company, I believe it was like August or something. Um, but uh, but yeah, a lot of people think that because it was so close. It was just only like a week or a week and a half after Michael Saylor did it. But he's the
That
OG. I give him the props for pushing us over the edge and getting us there.
I mean, I have to say, Michael Saylor, obviously a hugely successful entrepreneur. He wrote a book about the importance of technology very early on as well. Um, and definitely, for me at least, his voice and everything, his actions as well, came and cemented the conviction, the personal conviction I had personally. But I'm also curious to ask you. So you had a huge conviction personally yourself. You felt the urgency that you needed to buy more. You needed to protect the wealth that you had built in your company, and we talk a lot about orange pilling people, how sometimes it's very difficult because some people are not ready. Some people always they have arguments, but I'm really curious, how did you get to that level of conviction personally? Like, what really clicked for you to tell you that, okay, this is the thing where I'm going to put my wealth and it's going to protect my personal and professional wealth? And I'm curious, what kind of conversation, what did they look like having to convince your brother, your cousin, in order also to go all in, like you said?
Yeah, they thought I was crazy. They thought I was crazy. I was crazy. I mean, I sounded like a lunatic to everybody around me, and but I was just so motivated and so enthusiastic about it that I think it rubbed off on them
Hmm.
or something. Like
Okay.
I
But
was
they
so
must,
convinced and
they,
so sure of what's about to happen that I've sort of made them believe me, and there's also a very big degree of trust between us in our relationship. Like they know I've been into investing and money managing for years before that, so I kind of understand what I'm talking about. But the big moment for me, I mean, like the one moment where it sort of had that big paradigm shift for me was an article that I read by Robert Breedlove, and it's called "A Bitcoin and the Number Zero," or "The Number Zero and Bitcoin," one or the other.
Okay.
And it basically made me understand the difference between scarce and absolutely scarce, because there's a huge difference, and most people can't comprehend or can't understand the difference between just something that's rare and scarce versus something that's absolutely scarce, right? And when I read that article, he lays it out beautifully. It's a long article. I read it, and I remember just looking back and just trying to take it all in, and then just reading it again, and then getting the audio version and just listening it to again, because I just almost like I couldn't believe what I'm reading. Is this true? Is this, And it just made sense for me, right? And that's when I was like, yeah, like the difference, Michael Saylor gives a great analogy of the difference between no gravity and a little bit of gravity is, with no gravity, an object can keep going on forever.
Mm.
There's no gravity, right? But with a little bit of gravity, a little bit of inflation, a little bit of friction, it doesn't go forever. It has a stop, right? So the same thing applies here on Bitcoin. Is we've been able to build a money that is so durable that it will last forever, absolutely fixed, meaning it will never dilute, and you're also never going to find something as scarce, as rare in your life ever, right? Like think the best real estate property you can find in the world. Think the best whatever Rolex watch or Patek Philippe watch you can find, or the best painting, a Da Vinci painting, or there's never been anything like Bitcoin. There's no asset that has an absolute divisible fixed supply, right? So that to me just felt like the future, right? It felt like the future of money. And I wanted to participate in that because I've witnessed as an Egyptian, and I'm sure in Lebanon, you guys got screwed, right? Way more than us, even. But we've all seen it. We've all seen what the fiat Ponzi scheme does to society, does to us. Nobody gives a shit about us, right? When the hyperinflation was happening with you guys in Lebanon, nobody cared. The government, I mean, or the banks, nobody cared. People literally had to go in the bank with guns to try to get their own money out. And same thing happening in Egypt, like when the price of everything quadruples within a couple of years, nobody
That's
cares.
insane. Mm.
Nobody understands why it's happening. It's just they blame, they move on. They blame, oh, like the prices are up, they move on, nothing happened. But if they understand that it's a money problem, right, that the underlying money that we all live on, right, because that's the base of everything almost that we do, right? The base of trading, the base of our living and our expenses, everything, our trading, it's all money is the underlying base asset that we deal with. So you fix that, you can sleep comfortably. You don't have to worry about inflation or any of that bullshit because you're going to be protected. And for us, it was the best business move we've ever done. And yeah.
There's so much I want to touch on, and let me just start by asking you. It's been a few years. How has this decision played out for you, financially, operationally, and in terms of reputation?
Oh, awesome. It's great. Like, we bought Bitcoin at 10,000 a coin, 10,000 US dollars, right? Or maybe 11,000, I can't remember, right? But just look at where it's at now. And a lot of people ask us, well, what'd you do with it?
Yeah.
Nothing, you know? But our treasury just went up. Like sometimes we use it once to just finance a certain project and then we just bought it back. But like, we did nothing. We don't have to do anything with buying Bitcoin. That's not the point. The point is saving your wealth. The point is having the Bitcoin on your balance sheet to just sit there and protect your time and energy, because that's what it is. Like, your money is your time and energy. And when you put it in Bitcoin, you encrypt that money into Bitcoin, which preserves your life energy and your time, right? And it just preserves it in like cyberspace, like, which is so freaking cool, man. Like, I don't know how people don't get really, really excited about this, because I'm pumped. I'm pumped of my Bitcoin just sitting there doing nothing. So, yeah.
So you've mentioned, yeah, that's it. How money is the layer, like it's the base for everything. We convert our time and energy into money, and that we use to finance our lifestyle, to pay the bills, to build our wealth, etc. So, and what I really like is what you mentioned about absolute scarcity, is that so Bitcoin is the only thing that you cannot make more of whatever if the price increases. There's no incentive to make more watches. You can mine more gold, you can pump more fuel, but even if Bitcoin price shoots up to the moon, the supply is fixed and it's even deflationary. So it is very exciting. And you mentioned as well perhaps the pain of being from Egypt and seeing what money debasement does to a country, to people there. That was maybe another piece of why you were able to grow your conviction perhaps faster than other people. And it's interesting. So I grew up in Lebanon. Um, I've lived in Canada for 10 years. I recently moved back to Lebanon, and I love having this kind of double perspective of seeing Bitcoin as a store of value, the Western kind of perspective, more like an investment, but also seeing how Bitcoin serves as a great medium of exchange, a great way to, let's say, if you're a graphic designer in Lebanon, you're struggling to get a job, but you can work literally for everyone in the world and they can pay you in Bitcoin, in USDT as well. So it's fascinating to see how it works. And I'm curious. So you mentioned you have Egyptian roots. It's a country that I've had the huge pleasure to live in for 3 years in 2007. A wonderful experience. Um, what do you see if you still have, I'm sure you still have, you're still connected there. How do you see Bitcoin adoption in Egypt, and what do you think it will take maybe to accelerate that?
So I'll tell you a story. And so this story basically is about my father. And he worked his entire life in Saudi Arabia. Actually, he didn't live in Egypt. He worked in Saudi Arabia. That's where he built his career. He was one of the country's top private tutors, and he had like a little mini university in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and he was able to do very well for himself over his career. What he did is he basically moved all of his money to Egypt, and Most of it he bought real estate, but a big chunk of it was kept in just the banks, in bonds, right? And by the end of his career, he wanted to retire. That was around 2016, okay, or 2015. He wanted to retire. And then he got excited. He bought a house here in Canada because he wanted to retire and move to Canada and just live closer to us because we were living in Canada at the time, right? He was done with living alone and it's a brutal life. So when came time to do that, the 2016 Egyptian currency devaluation happened, and the currency dropped. I believe it was like 65% within a year,
Wow.
something crazy like that. Okay, and that basically ruined all of his plans on retiring. And he was forced to work an extra about 5 years in order for him to retire, right? So that was a catalyst on its own for even for me. Like that was an additional catalyst for me. That was an additional catalyst for him because I convinced him also to buy Bitcoin when they came here, and they bought a lot of Bitcoin. They've done very well for themselves. They're happy. They have a love-hate relationship with Bitcoin. When it's up, they love it. When it's down, they hate it, sort of thing. But if you look at it over the years, what it's done for them, it truly protected their wealth and grew it. So when I think the real adoption in Egypt happens when more and more people start sharing these stories and more people start going through this, right? Because we see the devaluation happen. Like we just had a major devaluation, like I think a couple of years ago, and more people get hurt, more people get burnt, and Bitcoin's just there. It will always be there, and it'll always be voluntary. It's never forceful. Nobody's gonna force that on anybody, and that's probably why Bitcoin's gonna have a slower trajectory
Mm.
because it's a roots movement. Unfortunately, in Egypt right now, there's so much capital controls and currency controls that even trading dollars is can get you in trouble.
Mm.
So trading Bitcoin is in Egypt is still illegal, but it does happen. I know, there's a black market, there is a peer-to-peer market for it, and people with technology are able to find ways to get around it. But I'm not so optimistic about Egypt just because of all these reasons. But eventually, there's just going to be no denying it. You have currency going like this, Bitcoin's going like this. Eventually, people will catch on and say, "What the hell am I doing?"
Yeah, absolutely. Education is key. I always think that. So first of all, thank you for sharing that story about your father. It is very endearing. Like he built a successful business of his own. He got rugged, and then through his progeny, he was able to regain at least some of that. That's amazing. I My father was a teacher. He's not with us anymore, but I would have loved to have discussions about Bitcoin. He always taught me about low time preference just before that term existed, so it would have been nice. Um, let's go back to Canada for a bit. A couple of years, I think, after you started buying a Bitcoin and starting mentioning it on social media, I think you testified to the Canadian Parliament, and you were advocating for Bitcoin as legal tender in Canada. Can you tell us more about how did that come about, and what did you take from that experience?
Yeah, so that's another story. I like that this conversation is all stories,
Yeah.
Bashar, but yeah, that's another story. So during that time, I picked up on a politician that was talking a lot about, sound money and what money is, like what is money and stuff like that in Parliament. And his name was Pierre Poilievre. And Pierre Poilievre, I reached out to him and told him, "Hey, I like what you do. Like we're big Bitcoin advocates, and I think this is a way to sort of protect Canadians' money and wealth." And he answered me back. I just slid in his DM sort of thing, right? But he answered me back, and we became friends from that point on. And then one day he tells me, "Hey, would you like to come to speak to the finance committee and the members of parliament um, during the yearly financial budget review of like the country?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely, right?" So I went back and I started to think about what do I want to tell my country about their budget meeting. And at that point, El Salvador just had launched their Bitcoin legal tender. They made Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador, and money printing was crazy at that time. We had just printed, I think it was like $600 billion on all sorts of kind of initiatives, right? Um, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to this meeting. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to tell them that they should integrate with Bitcoin. It's a parallel technology. It's going to help our economy. In Canada, our biggest industries are the energy sector and the finance sector, and Bitcoin can literally integrate with both. And I told them that we should make Bitcoin legal tender because El Salvador did it, and I think we can be leaders in this space. And I also told them that they need to borrow $10 billion from the central bank and buy Bitcoin with it. And instantly, like that was basically the summary. In a summary, that was the whole like speech, and I got laughed out of the room, Michelle, so fast, so fast. One follow-up question I got, and then they were like, "Okay, on to the next." And the follow-up question was from the guy who invited me, which is Pierre.
Okay.
Nobody was interested. At that time, Bitcoin was at $50,000 Canadian or 40 something, right? Now it's at $150,000 Canadian. So that's just a great story of, when you realize something is good, if you're going to be skeptical and make jokes and not take it seriously, you're just going to end up regretting it. And I know they weren't going to take me seriously, but I just wanted to go up there to have a reference, a point of history where an entrepreneur, a Canadian entrepreneur, an immigrant Canadian entrepreneur went up to the Canadian government and told them you should borrow $10 billion from the central bank and buy Bitcoin with it. And the funny thing is, like after my speech, like there was this environmental chick that came out, and I thought, by the way, I thought my $10 billion was like crazy, you know, a crazy number. I just wanted to throw like the highest number I could think is possible, right? And the girl that came after me, she was like an environmental chick, and she was proposing, seriously, proposing that we should, as a country, spend $10 billion a month for climate care, which was a very vague, like climate uh, I don't even remember the terminologies that she used, but it was just some bullshit that didn't make any sense. And everybody was on her. Everybody was like, "Oh wow, tell us more. What do we need to do this? What do we need to do, like, to make sure our climate is preserved?" It drove me nuts, right? But yeah, so they probably ended up spending billions of dollars in stuff that I don't think benefited the country in any way. I think if they listened maybe with just 1 billion instead of the 10, Canada would have benefited massively from this investment. Um, since we already sold all of our gold back in 2016, I thought, it'd be nice if our country was rich, right? So that's it. That's the end of the story. And then so I took the video, I posted it on my Twitter. It got viral, people talking about it, and then the government just moved on and we moved on, and it is what it is.
But that's a great story, and it shows that it takes some level of not just conviction, but of courage to step there and speak to people who are probably completely not interested and are even you said like they're gonna laugh at you, but that did not stop you. You did it out of maybe ethics, conviction, and also like you said, you wanted to have it on record and you have so good on you for doing that. And the government's narratives are not always aligned with what is best from a sound money perspective. So you did that a couple of years before the Bitcoin ETFs. You did that a couple of years before the strategic Bitcoin reserve has been voted in the United States. So kudos to you for being so early. And I want to ask you, because we talk a lot about empathy and orange pilling, and then you have the toxic Bitcoin maxis who are happy to just be fierce and savage and just very like they are very straight to the point and they're not here to humor you. But um, how do you look back, let's say, towards all the people who doubted whether your personal moves, the adding Bitcoin on your balance sheet? I'm sure lots of family members, maybe friends, maybe entrepreneurs, must have said not so many nice things or thought so many nice things about your move. How do you feel? How vindicated or how do you feel about that today?
Honestly, so I'll tell you, Michelle. We went when we first announced this in our like community, like the I live in a city called London, Ontario, and so in our London community, when we first announced this, people just said, "You guys are crazy. You guys are nuts. What are you doing?" Right? And everybody thought we were crazy. We had no backers whatsoever. And then I believe it was just like 6 months after that, or maybe a year after that, we were geniuses because Bitcoin at
Mm.
that point jumped from like 10,000 to 60,000, right? And we were considered geniuses. Oh my God, you guys like saw the future. Wow, like this and that. And then Bitcoin crashed. And then we went from geniuses to idiots again, right? So uh, even though when it crashed, it went down to 20,000, it's still double what we bought it at, right? So, but still, because of the drop, the huge drop, people still called us idiots and irresponsible. We just kept our head down, we kept working, and we kept buying more Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin it stayed for years in a bear market, and then it went back up. Now it's at 100,000 US dollars. So we're geniuses again, right? But I don't feel vindicated because I just reached a point where I don't care anymore what people think, because as I've seen throughout my life is people are wrong a lot. And a lot of times, what got me into this position is thinking from first principles. So if I um, study something and have conviction myself, I'm just going to stick to it. Now, me going to the government and trying to orange pill them, to be honest, Michelle, I don't really care if the government buys Bitcoin. I really care if people buy Bitcoin, people I know, and businesses, right? Because that's what Bitcoin benefits the most, in my opinion. Like the government can just print money, even if it gets rich off Bitcoin. Like it can still print money. It doesn't, but for people, it has a massive effect on their lives and their families. And that's what I get excited about. So I love when I get invited to shows like yours and talk about this because I can get to tell people how awesome this technology is, right? And don't listen to the naysayers, and you're going to face a lot of criticism for buying Bitcoin at 100,000 right now. I surely did at 10,000. Oh man, like people were buying this at $50. Like, what are you doing buying it at 10,000? Like, once you really understand Bitcoin, this thing is just gonna stay as the best storehold of wealth, throughout our entire lifetimes, right? So I just hope that people can um, really grasp how big this thing is and how much it can change their lives. Because it changed mine for sure. My life is 180 degrees changed because of Bitcoin. And I've integrated it into every aspect of my family as well. Like for my kids, my nieces and nephews, their birthdays, their Eid gifts, their any events that we have, their graduation, their wedding, right? I just give them Bitcoin now and they store it. And birthdays and stuff like that, it's like small amounts. So I give them like $30 in Bitcoin here, $30 here, $30 here. And then over time, I've been doing this for the last like 3 years. My it's incredible. My nephew, he's like 14 years old. He comes to me and he's like, all these like 30, 50, $40 that you used to give me, they're like $2,000 right now worth of Bitcoin.
Wow. Wow.
And he's like 15 years old. And I love that because that really hammers the point that, Bitcoin is just a piggy bank that works. So you should use it as a piggy bank. And every now and then you just add to the piggy bank, add to the piggy bank. And it just works, man. Like it'll just make you wealthy over time, right? So that's what I love to do. That's my passion. I don't care to go and tell people I told you so or this and that. Bitcoin does that on its own. I don't need to say anything, right?
I love that. And I love the family on the Bitcoin standard. I think I saw your nephew in one of your YouTube shorts coming after school to get a shawarma, like two or three of them, and it was just a funny sketch.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
so,
yes.
so Bitcoin is obviously for everyone. Bitcoin benefits individuals, businesses of all sizes, of all fields, because it is the best savings technology we've ever known. I was curious to have your thoughts about the corporate Bitcoin strategies that we have been witnessing for maybe a couple of years, but mainly since in the past few months, it's been accelerating. Obviously, you have businesses who are cash flow positive and who are storing part of or most of this cash flow in Bitcoin. But also you have businesses who are using financial markets in order to have more money that they can use to then buy Bitcoin. You've mentioned earlier in the conversation that you were very into finance and that was one of your passions. How do you see that? What's your thoughts about all this kind of financialization of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to stick on what I know. And what I don't know, Michelle, is all these new financial instruments that are coming through the public markets to raise money through debt and buy Bitcoin. Kudos for everybody that's doing it. If you're able to get a loan that you're not paying interest on, um, and you can get a lot of money raised that way, go ahead and do it, right? As a private business owner, we don't have that tool. We don't have the tool to raise money through issuing junk bonds or convertible bonds or whatever type of bonds that are being thrown around these days, right? So I'm going to try to benefit your audiences that are more private business owners, right? And what we do is we have a working capital. So a working capital is basically just a cash position that is enough for emergencies, a 3 to 6 months time frame to operate the business, pay employees salaries, and all that in case shit hits the fan. That's your safety net, right? And then, so you start building that cash pile first. And then everything beyond that, we consider as treasury. So whenever we make more money than this working capital, we take that money, we buy Bitcoin with it. Now, we don't take any loans to buy Bitcoin. However, we don't pay back any loans if we can just go buy Bitcoin instead. So we have, we have loans on our restaurants, on our warehouses, on a bunch of stuff that is similar to the loan you would get when buying a house, for example, like a mortgage loan. And we just choose not to pay, like when we have excess money, we just choose not to pay that back and buy Bitcoin instead. So you could say, like, in a sense, we are leveraged. We do sort of have, but it's not a leverage that will hurt us in any way. And especially, it's not leverage that will hurt us if the Bitcoin price goes down, because some people also borrow like with their Bitcoin as collateral. And that's how I see it as the best way in buying Bitcoin as a private entity or a private business. If you do that, you'll be golden.
I love that, and it kind of one of the first things that maybe I learned when I was working as a commercial account manager is that you loans is kind of, you mentioned leverage, but you're taking a loan on an asset that is appreciating in value, whether, let's say, in your case, is your restaurants, your company, in the case of a mortgage, a residential property that is increasing in value. So why would you hurry to pay back the loan in weak money while you can, just wait it out? So that was a very powerful strategy that you just explained in a wonderful way. And that we're getting close to the end of our conversation. I'm so glad about all the topics that we've managed to cover. What I want to ask you is, you have a low time preference. You're saving your wealth personally and professionally, protecting everything that you have built. What's your future plans? Let's say for Tahini's. I'm just asking because, let's say, lately, Stake and Shake announced starting accepting Bitcoin payments through the Lightning Network. They mentioned like they're going all in for tallow fries, which are all aspects of food that Bitcoiners are very excited about. I'm curious how do you, if you can apply any of these, and if you can just mention your projects in general.
Yes, absolutely. So um, now we're getting into like integration with like how to integrate Bitcoin into the business. model, or like the profit and loss side of the equation. What we've done so far is just we integrate it to the balance sheet side of the business, but integrate it into the profit loss by accepting Bitcoin is something that I really want to do, but unfortunately, the POS technology and the software that we use, it can't integrate with Lightning payments yet, because we're a franchise. We have over 55 different partners, franchisees, that each one of the restaurants is a separate corporation, under Tahini's, but that is owned by them. So it's a little bit more complicated to try to orange pill all of our franchisees as well into accepting Bitcoin. But we've done some other things that, because like I said, I try to integrate Bitcoin with my life and my business in every way possible. So we found a company that operates Bitcoin ATM machines called Bitcoin Well out of Canada, and we were able to make a deal with them to put Bitcoin ATM machines into the restaurants, and they pay us like a rent, like because they're renting the
Nice.
space. They put their machine, and that rent they pay us in Bitcoin, and it's one of the coolest deals that I've done, integrating Bitcoin to the business. Eventually, over time, I think we will have Bitcoin payments integrated. The technology just needs to catch up, and until then, we have no problem waiting. We're not in a hurry to get this. We'll just wait so that we're able to do it right. But yeah, and as for Tahini's and expansions, like we are about to open our first restaurant in the States,
Nice. Congrats.
in Illinois. Thank you. And we're on track to opening, so to having a total of about 80 restaurants this year. And by next year, the number hopefully will be around 120 restaurants. So big things coming for Tahini's. Follow us if you want to stay up to date with our story and our journey, and if you want to see that if we're coming to a city near you or your city, just follow our social media, all of it: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. But lots of exciting new things to come.
That is very exciting. We will definitely be on the lookout. I will include all of your social media in the video in the show notes. Just before
Thank you, Michelle.
thank you, before we wrap it up, for people who live close by to one of your restaurants, what have been some of your most popular shawarmas?
Oh, that's a good question. So my favorite shawarma, a lot of people ask me what's my favorite shawarma. That changes every month. Every month I have a new favorite shawarma, right? But if I'll give you three items that you must try at Tahini's, it'll be the original chicken shawarma is one, the butter chicken shawarma, and the crispy spice shawarma. And I think these are probably my favorite three. And each one of them has a completely unique flavor profile. One is like a fried chicken with garlic sauce and like the shawarma toppings, and one is butter chicken, so it's like an Indian flavor, and one is just our original authentic chicken shawarma, right? I think these three are a must get if you're ever close by. Please be our guest. We'd love to have you over and serve you some delicious food. And if you ever have a problem or have a bad experience, hit me up on Twitter. I'll take care of you.
Sounds amazing. Thank you, Ali, so much for taking the time today. We wish you the most success ever. Congrats again for having the conviction to act and to adopt Bitcoin very early on and to spread the message to all of your fellow entrepreneurs. We hope to see you again soon, and I wish you, great success in the month and years to come.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it, and it's an honor to be on your show.